This is a Rutke Mods video. Hello, I'm Greg Rutke of Rutke Mods, and welcome to episode 4 of my 32-bit CPU Mac series. In this episode, I will be showing you how to install Boot Camp 4 drivers onto your 32-bit CPU Mac in Windows 10. Now, I started filming this video back last month, and we'll be using some of those videos in this video, and because of this, some things are inconsistent because I originally wasn't planning on buying a 32-bit CPU Mac to demonstrate on, and was going to use my MacBook and Mac Pro. But I found my Mac Mini really cheap, and so we will give a crack at this, doing it this way. So let's begin. As we can see here, my desktop is really small on my Cinema display. This is because Windows does not have the drivers. So let's fix that. First off, let's talk about Boot Camp 4 and why this is going to be a bit difficult, but if you follow my tutorial, it shouldn't be that hard for you. Boot Camp 4 was designed for the 2,1 5,1 for the iMac, but the 2,1 Macs, which were the 64-bit Core 2 Duo Macs. Boot Camp 4 wasn't designed for 1,1. In fact, the last boot camp that was supported on the 1,1s was Boot Camp 3, and the last Windows that was supported was Windows Vista. So, installing Boot Camp 4 becomes a bit of an issue. Our 32-bit CPU Macs are totally capable of running 32-bit Windows 10. And since Boot Camp 4 was the final version of Boot Camp for 32-bit installs, it's the only boot camp we can use in Windows 10. Which wouldn't be a problem if, first off, Boot Camp 4 was supported by the 1,1 Macs, and second off, if Boot Camp 4 would install in Windows 10. Boot Camp 4 was designed for Windows 7 and Windows 7 only, and it will not allow you by default to install on Windows 10, but we can make it work. Now here is my MacBook 5,2. Now even though the motherboard is very different in this MacBook, the basics of this Mac is the same as the 1,1. In fact, it's basically identical. Other than the motherboard, the display, the keyboard, the trackpad, and even the speakers are the same as on the 1,1. So, this is a perfect example to show you that most of Boot Camp works fine in Windows 10 once we've done everything. Because this is about as close as you can get to a 1,1, at least for me, because this is the closest I have to a 1,1 MacBook. And let's show you exactly what it can still do. Now, even though there is no pop-ups when you press buttons, everything works fine, except the brightness controls for this MacBook. They don't work at all. Everything else, though, control panel options all work. Keyboard, trackpad. I actually have tap to click working, which I can show you. We'll do a right click, 2 fingers. Look. Okay. Now, other than the brightness controls not working, all these other keys seem to work. The volume control works. If you look down here, even mute. And even the eject button works. And as you can see, we are actually on a 32-bit copy of Windows 10. Boot Camp 4 works fine, other than for the brightness controls. And I'll cover the rest of it back on the Mac Pro. Before we can continue, we first need to download 2 sets of software. First, we need to download the Boot Camp support software for Boot Camp 4, straight from Apple. You'll want to download this to your desktop and unzip it. Then we'll also need the Orca MSI editor from Microsoft from this website, IT Support Guides, which here is the link to. Of course, both of these will be in the description. And you just have to scroll down, and here's the download link. Download that and install it to your computer. Now that we have these files downloaded on our desktop, we can now use them. First off, I will demonstrate what happens with Boot Camp when we try to install it. We will click on our Boot Camp folder, and we will click Setup. And we'll get this error. Boot Camp requires a computer that is running Windows 7. Now, originally I thought that this would give you an error that it wasn't supported on this computer, and in fact it probably would if we were in Windows 7. But apparently trying to run it on Windows 10 alone overrides that. So to fix this, we need to install Microsoft Orca. This will allow us to modify the .msi file, this one right here, the 32-bit one. It will allow us to modify this and remove all the restrictions on it. So I am going to install Microsoft Orca, and I will come back to this video when I am finished. Now that we have Microsoft Orca installed, we can open up that MSI file. We need to go to File, Open, go to our location where our boot camp is. In this case, it would be, for me, desktop. Open up our boot camp, go to Drivers, and then Apple, and choose this one, the 32-bit one. We click Open. Now we will want to go into the tables here and go down to Launch Condition. And this is where all the restrictions are. Well, to override everything, the only thing we need to do is right-click and hit Drop Table. It will ask if you want to drop the table. You click Yes, and then we just click Save. Now we can go back to our boot camp drivers and click Setup again. And it will allow you to finally install Boot Camp 4. Once this is all finished, I will come back. Now that our Boot Camp install is complete, we can click Finish. It will ask you if you want to restart the system. We click Yes. And when it boots back up, everything should work in theory because it has installed drivers which fully support the 2,1 Macs, and our Macs are 2,1 Macs with just 32-bit CPUs instead of 64-bit CPUs. Now, if you are a user who has a GMA 950 integrated GPU like I do, you may notice that your video drivers still don't work. To fix this, we need to download the Windows 7 drivers from Intel's website, which I will put a link to in the description. I am going to install the drivers, which I already have, on my flash drive. If you get this message right here, it's actually not true. It detects a non-existent driver. Windows 10 does not have these graphics drivers. So we will click Yes that we want to override the driver. And it will install the drivers. And the drivers are installed. We will restart the computer. Once it is booted up again, I will show you the next steps to make sure everything's working properly. Now that I am booted back up, We can now check to make sure all of our drivers are installed. We right-click on Start. We go to Device Manager. And now we verify that everything works. If you get an unknown device, you can select the device, right-click, go to Properties, click Details, and then go to Hardware IDs. Select this line right here, right-click and hit Copy, and then we can open up the web browser, right-click and paste. And if you're using Microsoft's Edge browser and Bing Search, we need to select Bing Search. And it should identify what it is. Now that this is all done, we can verify that our boot camp is working properly. First, we can go down into the corner, right-click on Boot Camp, and click on Control Panel. And here's our boot camp. Now, unlike in the MacBook, the brightness control for, let's say, the cinema display actually works. And we still have all the functions. Working. But of course, the brightness controls still don't work with the buttons as far as I know. But in the control panel, it works. And to verify that the sound's working again, I will click the sound buttons on my keyboard. All of that seems to work. Now we can also verify that our Mac drive is showing up. And here it is. HFS file system. Now I have installed the November update of Windows 10, which was from last year. This is Windows 10 1151. If you install the anniversary update, which came out back in early August, you will lose your Mac drive right now anyway. There hasn't been a fix for it yet, but it is known that it happens. And if there's ever a fix that comes out, I will let you know. But if you want to update to the anniversary update, there's no problem in doing that. You'll just lose the ability to see your drive. You can still transfer files, but you will need to use a USB flash drive or a cloud service to download your files. Now there is one last thing I will demonstrate to you, that the eject button even works. We click eject, hold it in, and the drive ejects. Well, there's the tutorial on how to install Boot Camp 4 on your 32-bit Windows 10 install. Anyway, that is the end of the video, and thank you for watching. This has been a RutKMods video. In Control Panel, we can still control the brightness or not. Right-click and paste. We click Search, and it doesn't do anything.